And now here with me to discuss the latest developments in Ukraine and the G20 in Bali is political analyst and special correspondent for the Kiev Post, Jayson J. Smart. Hello there, and thanks for joining us on World News Tonight.
Good to see you. How are you?
Great. Now, with Kherson City liberated, there are voices calling for some kind of negotiated settlement. Please tell us, why is that likely to fall on deaf ears?
It's not going to go anywhere. I mean, there's a couple of reasons. One is that it's something that the Ukrainians don't want. And as the White House has continued to repeat, this is in the hands of Ukraine. I mean, there's not going to be any force from the outside, certainly not from the United States, to try to force them into negotiating away part of their territory. Ukraine's on a roll. It's gaining territory. Why would it possibly give it up at this point, first? And secondly, we've seen Russia enters into negotiations with bad faith. They're not entering these negotiations seriously looking for peace. We remember in March when we did the first round of negotiations, it was all just a fraud. And I think it would be exactly the same here. The fact is that Vladimir Putin is still intent on occupying all of Ukraine, if possible. And there is absolutely no benefit to that. And it's something the Ukrainians understand very well. And so I don't see negotiations going anywhere at this point.
Right, but you say that, do you think Vladimir Putin is really still interested in occupying all of Ukraine? I mean, at this point, for all of us onlookers around the world, that seems like impossible.
It seems impossible, but it doesn't mean he thinks it's impossible. I mean, keep in mind, we're dealing with somebody who's ideologically driven. This is not somebody who's making rational decisions. A rational person doesn't invade their country and lose 100,000 soldiers or more, according to American intelligence, because they lose a nation's economy. And he's lost all his foreign trade partners. He's diminished his country massively. Is this a rational action? No, it's ideological. And so if you're being motivated by a principle, it doesn't matter the cost. And he's really executing what he believes is something that's better in the long-term interest of Russia.
All right. Now, since these sham referendums, I mean, Kherson is now technically Russian territory. So what does Russia do next?
Russia, I think the most likely scenario is the one that we've been hearing about for weeks, which is Russia is likely to try to attack Ukraine, coming down from Belarus down to the, let's say, central western part of Ukraine. There is a Rivne, there is a Zhytomyr. And why would they do that? Well, it's got a couple upsides. One is that it would cut off supplies going to eastern Ukraine. It would also be an opportunity to distract the Ukrainian military from being able to advance further to the east. Because by taking over these areas, Ukraine would have to rush soldiers over to protect the capital, Kiev. And let's look at what else is happening right now. Ukraine is losing energy. It is probably in the near future that a great deal of Ukraine will not have regularly scheduled energy. And as a result, when you don't have electricity, you don't have running water, which means you don't have sewage, which means there's a lot of things your country loses. For instance, gas stations. So it means there's no more deliveries because there's no more trucks that can get gas. And these are things that Putin is counting on. That's why he's been attacking electric substations, is he's playing a long game. I mean, this loss in Kherson is something that we're all excited about. I'm excited about. I'm sure you are as well. Yeah. But the fact is, we know that Putin is planning on dragging this out for months and months and months, thinking that the cost of bleeding out Ukraine will lead him to victory.
Now, why do you think that he didn't try this approach in the very beginning? If you look at, say, the American invasion of Iraq, I mean, it's one of the first things you do, right? You take out some of these critical infrastructure, electricity being among them. Why do you think it's now?
It's a very good question. I think that the simple answer is this, is that unlike other countries that would analyze the situation more with greater sobriety, I think that he entered into this thinking that it really would be a 3-day coup. Destruction of infrastructure would actually result in higher cost for the post-war period. And after a week, why would he have to rebuild all these electric stations? It'd be much better just to swoop in, overthrow the democratically elected government of Zelensky, and to install a puppet state.